Hey Vista, welcome back to your City Council Tea. This week's meeting ran 2 hours and 53 minutes and every single one mattered. We had a detective who took down $1 million theft ring, 3 firefighters, and one absolute legend of a neighbor who saved a woman from a swarm of bees, yours truly, walking the dais as a Leadership Academy graduate, and the council mapped out roughly $61 million of capital projects reshaping this city, so buckle up. If you're new here, hi, I'm Chris Rainwaters, your favorite real estate witch and Vista, California's self-proclaimed village witch. This steaming hot pot of tea is brought to you by Coven Real Estate. Buying, selling, downsizing, inheriting, relocating, city decisions are upstream of all of it. If you want a realtor who's actually paying attention to the city you're buying or selling in, I'd be honored to be your resource. And if you have a Vista-based small business and you'd like to sponsor an episode, reach out to me. All right, let's spill the tea. The meeting kicked off with Mayor John Franklin introducing the 28th graduating class of the Vista Leadership Academy. The Academy is a multi-week program where Vista residents, or the Vista curious, get walked through how the city operates. So how departments function, how decisions get made, how your top tax dollars are spent. Mayor Franklin puts it like this: the Academy provides insight to Vista residents on the city's operations and its many responsibilities and functions. And I quote, translation, you learn how the sausage gets made. And if you know me, it's kind of my jam. Also, the mayor said that I'm responsible for recruitment for the next round. So if you're interested, email our incredible city clerk, Kathy Valdez, or go to this website for more info. And I was in it, the spring 2026 cohort, along with some awesome people. So hi, Mary, Mitch, Paul, Gail, Jack, Dina, Yolanda, Sandy, Jenny, Gabby, and Donna. You guys were awesome, and I had so much fun. So I sit through these council meetings every couple of weeks and translate them for you, but getting walked through the guts of how Vista runs changes how I see the agenda. I'm planning on doing a whole separate video on what I learned. Drop a comment if you want it bumped up the list. Now, on to the part of the meeting that made me genuinely emotional twice. Mayor Franklin called forward San Diego Sheriff's Office Detective Evan Maldonado for a proclamation of commendation, and I quote, outstanding heroism and commitment to public service. So starting in June 2025, Maldonado spearheaded a complex investigation into storage unit burglaries across all of North County, San Diego. So storage units, you know, where you stash grandma's china, your wedding photos, and the stuff you swear that you're gonna get to one day. People were getting cleaned out. So here's where it gets witchy, but not in a fun way. So to quote the proclamation, he uncovered a sophisticated scheme involving the use of stolen personal identifying information to fraudulently rent storage units for the purpose of concealing stolen property. So they stole identities, used those identities to rent storage units, and then used those units to hide property stolen from other people. A whole infrastructure of theft, layered like a really gross onion. So there was over $1 million in stolen property recovered. This pulled multiple illegal firearms off the streets. More than 12 search warrants were executed and more than 18 identified victims, and there were multiple felony arrests. One detective, you guys, dismantled this whole operation. I mean, I'm sure he had some help, but this is the work that quietly protects property values, neighborhood trust, and the sense that I can leave my stuff somewhere and it'll still be there, which in 2026 feels increasingly mythical. Thank you, detective, genuinely. But then the next story had the room a different kind of quiet. So there was a joint proclamation honoring Daniel Hopkins and 3 Vista Fire Rescue first responders. So Captain David Cortez, and I'm bad at pronunciation, so I apologize, Engineer Jeff Godzika, and firefighter paramedic Brian McDonald. I can do that one. So on February 21st at just before noon, so broad daylight, middle of a Saturday, dispatch got a 911 call. A woman was being attacked, not by a person, but by a swarm of bees in her own backyard. The caller was a neighbor 3 houses away and couldn't get close enough to help. Fire engine number 122 was on the scene in under 6 minutes. P.S. I learned from the fire chief at Leadership Academy that their target is always under 5. They really do the best that they can. They found her motionless and covered in bees. And I don't mean like a few bees on her, but covered. So Cortez, Gadzika, and McDonald put on bee hoods and went in. So as quoted, despite sustaining multiple bee stings themselves, the firefighters successfully extricated the patient from the immediate danger and transferred her for medical emergency care. So they got stung like a lot, and they got her out anyway. But before Engine 122 arrived, a neighbor had already shown up. So Daniel Hopkins heard the calls, ran over, found her motionless, barely able to speak, and engulfed by bees. The swarm forced him back, so he grabbed a garden hose. He came back and suppressed the bees long enough to reach her, covered her with a blanket, and stayed at her side at great personal risk until the first responders took over. And then the mayor read from Captain Cortez's official report. So this is the firefighter talking about the civilian. I firmly believe the actions of this neighbor helped save the lives of the patient as he protected her first and sacrificed his own well-being. The fire captain said the neighbor saved her life because Daniel didn't wait. He didn't film it. He grabbed a hose and a blanket and went toward the danger. The fire chief came up after and thanked Daniel directly and thanked Vista's mutual aid partnership with Oceanside Fire, which is part of why response times here are as fast as they are. You could feel it in the room. And this is what proclamations are supposed to be about. And honestly, people like this are everywhere in Vista. This story totally reminded me of the time that my neighbor's backyard was on fire and no one was answering the door. So a few of us neighbors all worked together. Someone called the fire department and one of them jumped over the fence to see what could be done. He ended up breaking his freaking ankle, but he also saved the day. The firefighters said that his efforts are what stopped it from reaching the house. He received a lot of Christmas presents from the neighborhood that year. But that's Vista. That's why we live here. Now, every neighborhood I just talked about, every house Daniel Hopkins and his neighbor live in, every storage unit that Detective Maldonado raided, they all sit on top of decisions this council made tonight about $61 million. So let me show you the three that touched your block. If you live near Emerald Drive, you've been waiting on this for years. Public Speaker Denise Baran has lived there for 30 years and said that she's been waiting 8 for shovels in the ground. Tonight, she got a phasing plan. The full project is 6 roundabouts at Timothy Place, Jonathan Place, Galbar, Chasen, Ravine, and Silver Fox, plus ADA sidewalks, crosswalks, medians, lighting, bus pads, and bike striping. Total, $1.2 million. Currently funded, $2.8 million. That gap shrank tonight. So Congressman Mike Levin's office locked in $850,000 for design, $2 million in April for construction phasing, and a $3.5 million fiscal year 2027 earmark. So phase 1 is fully funded. Permanent roundabouts at Timothy Place and Jonathan Place, plus a temporary quick build roundabout at Galbar, Vista's first ever. So cost is about $50,000 versus $700,000 for a permanent one. Council member Melendez expressed maybe thinking of them more citywide. Council member Contreras asked if materials can move to other intersections later. Deputy Mayor O'Donnell pushed back to make sure temporary doesn't quietly become permanent. So Denise sat in that room tonight and watched 8 years of waiting turn into a real plan. I got to watch her face when they said phase 1 is funded. That's what showing up does. And real estate translation, the corridor north of Beaubier just became more walkable, more pedestrian safe, and more attractive to buyers with kids. So watch the comps on Emerald over the next 18 months. Before we go deeper into the money, I want you to hear who else showed up tonight because public comment is where Vista actually lives. So these are your neighbors on the record. So Dawn on Breeze Hill Road asked the sheriff to route detention facility vehicles north of Hacienda instead of south through her residential street at 4 a.m. with lights and sirens, reasonable ask. Wendy asked questions about 4th of July fireworks, so Vista does have a task force this year, and a roundabout at Pomelo and Hacienda, which Councilmember Melendez actually endorsed later as a quick build candidate. Fred, a 70-year-old tennis player, asked the city to remove the top half of the windscreen at Bringle Terrace Court so spectators can actually watch matches. This guy seemed pretty rad, I'll admit. If I knew him, I'd totally introduce him to my friend Scott. I think they would be homies for sure. Then there was Liz from San Marcos, who told a cautionary tale about Subdivision Map Act abuse and urged Vista to watch carefully who they grant entitlements to. Then Purita and Cesar were speaking about 5 years of asking the APCD about ceramic kiln pollution affecting them, and they haven't gotten a response. Then we have Madison about her usual topic, marijuana. Today, though, was the vape devices piling up as hazardous waste at schools. Then we heard from Becky, who's another regular. So today was about enforcing flavored tobacco and kratom bans the way that Oceanside is. So Oceanside sees 6,300 prohibited products in one operation. So 6,300 is a lot. And I wonder, this was just an episode of Last Week Tonight, so maybe she was inspired, but I agree, that stuff has got to go. Then we have Judy on marijuana risks for older adults. She's a regular too. And last but not least, we had Teresa, David, and Janice. They were speaking about expanding the styrofoam ban to retail sales and ban single-use plastics at city events. Council voted to bring that back as a future agenda item, so that's a win for showing up. Also, procedural public hearing approved a CalPERS contract amendment classifying Fire Prevention Bureau employees as local firefighters under Government Code 20434, and that's effective June 13th, 2026. All right, so those are the people building Vista in real time, and now let's look at what the council has been building back. The council reviewed all 8 of their 2024 to 2026 goals tonight. I'm going to fly through them, but pay attention. One of these touches your block, I promise. We'll start with housing because it's the one that I get asked about the most. Vista House opened in August of 2025, and that's a transitional housing for young adults ages 18 to 25, and it's the only one of its kind in North County. So through the encampment resolution program with San Diego Rescue Mission, the city has served 815 unduplicated clients. Through the Townspeople Partnership, 45 households, so 60 people in total, have been placed into shared housing. 478 encampments have been resolved, and the pipeline, there's 54 affordable units and 52 rent-to-own units in development, including a 63-unit permanent supportive housing project going in at 902 Vista Village and a 70-unit senior housing project at 211 Palm Drive. That's an actual improvement. Public safety is next. So Fire Station 3 reopened on April 27th. So there's a new sheriff's storefront at 986 Vista Village. The council added a traffic deputy specifically for DUI enforcement. And just last month, they approved a new gang detective. But you watched that episode of The Tea, so you already knew. And pay attention if you own a home. Vista updated wildfire codes covering defensible space zones 0, 1, and 2. That matters for your homeowner's insurance, so talk to your agent. On the fiscal side, they adopted the cannabis revenue allocation policy. They're migrating the finance system to the cloud. They picked a new banking partner, and the long-term financial plan was presented. Boring? Absolutely, but this is the stuff that keeps Vista solvent, and I'll take boring and solvent any day. We got a cleaner, more beautiful Vista. So over 1,000 street service requests were handled. 577 of them were graffiti remediation. The ash can program is live, and that's to cut down on nasty cigarette butts. And the styrofoam ban had to be enforced on 15 local businesses. So if you see something like a pothole, graffiti, abandoned shopping cart, whatever, download the Access Vista app and report it. Staff says response is fast, and it is. I've reported a couple of things myself. For climate, 1,108 trees were planted or promised across 2024, 2025, and 2026. The Civic Center, Public Works, and Fire Station 3 are all now running on clean energy. 102 EV charging stalls are going in at 10 city sites, and Vista earned 2025 Tree City USA recognition. We really earned that. And for Parks and Rec, we've got Vive Park, also called Paseo Buena Vista Park, which opened in October of 2025. That one's a partnership with the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians, and it's named for the original Luiseño village that stood on that land. Phase 2 is in this year's CIP, and we'll get to that one in a minute. Pickleball courts expanded at Brangle Terrace, tennis courts converted at Thibodeau, the Wave Water Park got approved for $3.5 million in improvements. We've got senior center renovations. Phases 1 and 2 are done. New restrooms at Paula Vista and Luz Duran parks. Glamorous stuff? No, not really, but necessary? Yeah, ask anyone with kids. In economic development, the Vista Business Hub launched. Vista now has a short-term rental program, which means that they're finally collecting TOT, which stands for Transient Occupancy Tax. So that's the hotel tax that now applies to Airbnbs and VRBOs operating in Vista. That's real money coming back into the city's general fund. There's also a new downtown committee. The Avo Playhouse RFP is in progress, and Vista Bucks is rolling. And then traffic, our favorite. This one is huge, right? So 168 speed humps were installed on 48 council-approved streets. 44 lane miles were repaved in fiscal 2025 to 2026. New roundabouts at Beaubier and Calle Jules and at Foothill and Oak. Protected bike lanes were installed on North Melrose, South Melrose, Sycamore, Vista Village Drive, North Santa Fe, East Beaubier, Olive, and Taylor. And okay, I have to stop and say this. 168 speed bumps on 48 streets? That's now somebody's kid who can ride a bike to school without their mom white-knuckling the steering wheel directly behind them. Look, I know a lot of people hate them, but I personally love them. I wish they'd put them on my main road, but with the fire station situation, I just don't think that's feasible. So I will just keep driving 2 miles under the speed limit with a trail of angry people trying to go 20 miles over the speed limit behind me. Dude, one of my neighbors got hit by a car on his bike and it really messed him up. Whatever I'm late for can just wait a couple more minutes. But the really big one, Councilmember Contreras pushed NCTD, so that's the North County Transit District, the agency that runs the Sprinter and the Coaster. She pushed them to formally prioritize the Vista Village Drive Main Street railroad grade separation. And it came back as their #1 priority regionally. That's a multi-decade infrastructure win in the making. If you've ever sat at that crossing and a bunch of traffic watching a train go by, that is the project that ends that. The one disappointment from the night, the inland rail trail is still delayed. Final design hasn't even hit 60%, and Sandag has to return $1.7 million in state active transportation program funds because the project isn't shovel ready. Councilmember Contreras was visibly frustrated about it, and honestly, so am I. Remember that neighbor I just mentioned? After the report card, Finance Manager Sarah Taylor and Engineering Division Manager Matt Atterbury walked through the 2026-2027 and 2027-2028 Capital Improvement Program, or as it's known around City Hall, the CIP. So basically, this is the city's 2-year shopping list. Roughly 60% of it goes to sewer projects funded by the sewer fees that you're already paying. Another 28% goes to transportation and streets. So here's what's actually getting built. Let's start with the fun stuff, new parks. Breeze Hill Park Phase 1 is getting 4 pickleball courts and a sound wall to the tune of $949,000. Weave Park Phase 2, remember that's the park also known as Paseo Buena Vista over by the town site and East Vista Way, the one that opened last October with the outdoor exercise equipment. So this next phase is getting passive recreation, shaded picnic, bench seating, a central open lawn, and pay attention dog people, a small dog park and a large dog park. That one's about $2 million, and it's being built again in partnership with the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians. Bringle Terrace Park Phase 1 is getting a perimeter walking trail for around $897,000. Madrigal Park Drive is interesting. So they appropriated $380,000 for design, and the city is going after Proposition 4 grant funding to actually build it. Deputy Mayor O'Donnell specifically flagged this one because he wanted the public to know it is not being deprioritized. It's being set up to be built with grant dollars instead of general fund dollars. And there's a difference. Also, there's $1.2 million going to finish funding the Avenida de Benito Juarez Pocket Park, and Beaubier Drive Park, plus the park at New Haven and West Los Angeles are both moving forward. So if you live near any of those, things are happening. Now, traffic signals and drainage. Woo! There's a new signal going in at North Santa Fe and Angeles Vista Drive for $750,000. Although Councilmember Contreras is asking the council to evaluate whether that should actually be a roundabout instead, and Councilmember Melendez is backing her on it. So that one might change. Another new signal at South Santa Fe and Santa Anita for $750,000, and a drainage project at South Mills and Sunset for $500,000. For public facilities, Congressman Levin's office secured an $850,000 federal earmark for a homeless navigation center. $1.8 million is going to renovate the public works and wastewater building, and $100,000 is set aside for ongoing ADA improvements. That's Americans with Disabilities Act upgrades at city's facilities. So curb ramps, accessible entrances, that kind of thing. Okay, this next one, pay attention. So this is the sidewalk priority list. So this is the one that your neighborhood wants to be on because every one of these streets is getting new sidewalk infrastructure in the next 2 years. Number 1 is North Indiana Avenue between East Orange and Washington. So that's 333 feet of sidewalk for a tune of $400,000 paid for through a community development block grant. So that's federal HUD money that cities use for neighborhood improvements. We'll call it CDBG from here on out. Number 2, West Los Angeles Drive between Avenida Benito Juarez and North Santa Fe. So 265 feet or $400K. Number 3, Townsite Drive between East Indian Rock and East Vista Way. 480 feet for $550K. And number 4, West California Avenue at West Los Angeles. So this is 1,600 feet. So this is the biggest stretch on the list for $775K. And last but not least, number 5, Beaubier Drive between Sports Parkway and Marabou Lane. So this is 556 feet for the tune of $300K. Here's the thing. If you're on that list, your property value just moved. Walkability is one of the most consistent predictors of home values in suburban California. And the city literally just allocated money to make your block more walkable. If you're not on that list, call your council member. I'm serious. That is literally how this works. The squeaky wheel doesn't get the grease. The squeaky wheel gets the sidewalk. And finally, the big, unsexy $37 million chunk of the budget, the poop chute, right? The sewer. These are major capacity upgrades coming to East Broadway, Hill Drive, Maryland Drive, North Melrose, and North Santa Fe, plus the Delphi Ditch sewer relocation. And that one's interesting because it's the only sewer project on the list that isn't being done for capacity reasons. They're moving those pipes because the banks they sit on have eroded. The pipes are at risk. And $15.7 million of that $37 million, that's Vista's share going to Encino Wastewater Authority. That's the regional sewage treatment partnership Vista belongs to with Carlsbad and a few other agencies. So none of this is exciting, I know, except when it doesn't work, right? But, and I cannot express this enough, all of this affects whether your house can be built on, sold, refinanced, or renovated. So no sewer capacity means no permits. That's the rule. So when people complain about sewer rates, this is what those rates are paying for. The ability for any of us to actually live here. All right, so here's the final spread in tarot terms. You've got $61 million in capital projects, 6 new roundabouts on Emerald, pickleball at Breeze Hill, dog parks, plural, at Weave, sewer capacity for actual growth, a grade separation push that could change downtown forever, plus a detective who took down $1 million theft ring, and a neighbor who saved a life with a garden hose. When buyers ask me, Chris, is this a good neighborhood? Zillow can't tell you the answer, but the City Council T can. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or relocating in North County or Lake Arrowhead, I'm Chris Rainwaters with Coven Real Estate. Like this video, share it with the neighbor who needs to hear about their sidewalk priority ranking, and drop a comment. Which CIP or Capital Improvement Program project hits your block the hardest? Wait, here's the part I keep thinking about though. That bee swarm story ended well because a neighbor just happened to be home, and that's not really a solid plan. That's amazing luck. And planning ahead doesn't mean expecting something bad to happen, right? It just means not leaving it up to luck. Part 1 of my brand new 8-part series, Aging Parents, the talk that no one wants to have about mom and dad, just dropped. So maybe go watch that next. I'll see you in the next one, but hopefully sooner.